Our story begins in a hospital where our protagonist, Shin King, lies unconscious. Suddenly, the petal of a dead flower falls and brushes against his face, causing him to wake up. He immediately sits up, removes the oxygen mask, and takes a moment to catch his breath. He then asks where he is and whether he has been reborn. As a memory resurfaces, he quickly grabs the blanket covering his lower body. When he pulls it off, he is shocked to discover that both of his legs are gone. He curses in frustration and wonders what time it is. At that moment, a young woman enters the room calling him brother. His little sister, tears streaming down her face, rushes to embrace him, exclaiming how wonderful it is that he's finally awake. She then vows to catch the hit-and-run driver who caused his accident, assuring him that his legs will be cured. He comforts his sister, confirming that everything happened 1 year ago. 1 year ago, a car accident transformed him from the youngest billionaire in the country, the chairman of Rising Sun International Group, into a cripple while he was focused on treatment. His most trusted friend, whom he considered a brother, Xiao Tiankai, seized the opportunity to take control of Rising Sun International Group. Shankai even threatened Shin King's health, forcing his sister into a marriage arrangement to secure continued treatment for him. Tiankai promised her that, as long as she married him, he would guarantee Shin King's future. Shin King, furious, shouted for Tiankai to let her go, but Tiankai mockingly asked him what he was barking about. He then forcibly kissed Shin King's sister, making her cry and beg for her brother to save her. Everything was taken from Shin King by that despicable Xiao Tiankai. Later, a game called Divine Path emerged, developed collaboratively by multiple countries. It offered 100% realism, and in-game currency could be exchanged for real money, causing it to become a goal sensation. Its most critical feature was that character attributes in the game could affect reality. This game should have been Shin King's best chance to change his fate, but at the time he was penniless. Without money to spend, he couldn't acquire good resources, leaving him trapped in mediocrity. Chiang Kai, using the wealth that once belonged to Shin King, spent lavishly in the game, acquiring the best resources and attributes which elevated his power in reality to an unrivaled level. Shin King knew that all of it should have been his, that it rightfully belonged to him. Sometime later, Tiankai met with Shin King and mocked him, asking if he had summoned him just to make him laugh at his broken doghouse. Tiankai taunted Shin King, asking if he really thought a room full of explosives could kill him. Shin King whispered that they should try it, and then, shouting, declared that they would die together. He detonated the bomb, causing the entire building to explode. Lying on the ground without arms or legs, Shin King was shocked to hear Tiankai's voice. Tiankai, completely unarmed, asked why Shin King had even bothered. As Tiankai approached, he explained that with the power he had gained a divine path, even explosives couldn't singe a hair on him. Tiankai then stepped on Shin King's head, saying before he die, he will tell him one more thing. He revealed that he had been behind Shin King's accident, the loss of his legs, and even the deaths of his parents. To add insult to injury, Tiankai laughed, telling Shin King that the last bloodline of the Shin family would bear his surname. Overwhelmed with rage and despair, Shin King cried out, but Tiankai ended his life by crushing his head. Now, as Shin King reflects, he doesn't know why. He has been reborn, but he understands that it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He tells his sister to stop crying, assuring her that he is fine and teasing that if she continues, he'll laugh at her. Shin King then swears that this time he will protect his sister and the legacy of their parents. He also vows to tear that beast Xiao Tiankai to pieces. However, he is painfully aware that his disability is a fact, and he wonders how he can turn things around. Suddenly, he remembers that Divine Path is just about to launch. People won't realize its ability to affect reality for another month, making this his best chance to change his fate before his assets are frozen. Shin King frowns as he contemplates his next move, causing his sister to ask if his legs are in pain. She offers to call the doctor, but he stops her, explaining that there is something urgent she must do for him. When she asks what it is, he tells her to buy a Divine Path gaming pod. Confused, she asks what he means by a gaming pod. At that moment, Tiankai enters the room, sarcastically asking when Shin King developed such a fondness for gaming and what would happen to the company if he got addicted. Shin King was furious, realizing that Tiankai was already testing him. He asked Chiang Kai what else he could do besides play games, now that he was just a cripple. Chiang Kai smiled at his response and said he had heard that Divine Path was being released today and that the gaming pods were limited to 100 units. He added that the price had already risen to 300 million and Shin King would probably have to pay extra to get one. Shin King retorted, asking if Chiang Kai still controlled the company's funds and said that even if the price was 30 billion, he would get one. His little sister pleaded with him not to act so rashly, but Chiang Kai innocently assured them not to worry, promising to get it for Shin King. In truth, Chiang Kai thought it would be easier to take over the company if Shin King was distracted by the game. Chiang Kai told Shin King to enjoy the game first, saying that he would have the gaming pod delivered soon, and that Shin King didn't need to worry about the company or his sister, as he had everything under control. As Chiang Kai reached for his little sister, Shin King grabbed his little sister Tong and said that she'll stay with him tonight because he wanted to spend more time with her. He glared at Chiang Kai, vowing that Chiang Kai would never touch his sister with his filthy hands, not over his dead body. Chiang Kai agreed immediately and left the room outside. Chiang Kai furiously called the driver, who hit Shin King, calling him a useless killer. Chiang Kai angrily asked how the driver failed to kill Shin King in the accident, then muttered to himself that next time he would use a tanker truck to make sure the job was done. Inside the room, Shin King told Tong to transfer all of his money into the game. Confusing her, she asked why, but he just told her not to ask questions and ordered her to sell all the company's stocks. Worried, she asked if he was sick, but he replied he wasn't sick. He just needed to bet big. 3 hours later, Shin King was inside the gaming pod, which had cost him 500 million. He declared to Divine Path that he was coming, then activated the system and entered the gaming world. He landed safely in the realm and was exhilarated to finally move freely. Noting how real his legs felt, the system prompted him to name his character, and he chose Kaoju Wang, meeting Morning Wine Elegy. The class selection screen appeared, offering the usual choices: warrior, mage, ranger, assassin, priest, knight, and summoner. He decided to choose the same class as in his previous life, the one he was most familiar with. After submitting his choice, the system confirmed that he had chosen the ranger class and changed his outfit to match. He was relieved to see that everything was the same as last time. Then, the system revealed that as a VIP user of the gaming pod, he had triggered a special reward, the Elf Bloodline, an epic level reward. This bestowed him with the title of Born Ranger and granted him favor from the elves, providing a 10% increase in accuracy, critical rate, evasion, and a 15% boost in movement speed. The system also showed that as a VIP user, he had triggered another reward, a special skill book called Weakness Detection, a legacy skill that identifies the weak points of targets. Attacking weak points would deal 150% to 200% damage and consume 20 mana with a 120-second cooldown. Shin King recognized this as the same skill he had mastered in his previous life. Then the system notified him that as one of the first 100 global VIP users to purchase the gaming pod, he had received a special exclusive treasure chest. A treasure chest appeared in front of him, which surprised him because it hadn't been there in his previous life. Reaching for it, he knew that the most important talent ability must be inside. The chest informed him that it contained a rare talent ability, but to unlock it, he needed to recharge 50 million gold coins. The cost, 500 million RMB. Shin King paused for a moment, then confidently recharged the amount, knowing that if he didn't spend the money now, Chiang Kai would take everything later. He understood that talent abilities were random attributes every new player could acquire, and that the earlier a player entered the game, the rarer the talent ability they would obtain. He recalled that in his previous life, he had received an additional bleeding damage effect, which had been a great asset in countless battles. The system confirmed that 500 million gold coins had been recharged. Shin King braced himself, thinking that this time, since he was spending big, he must get something even better. He clicked yes, and the treasure chest opened, releasing a blinding light. Staring in disbelief, he asked if the system was joking. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The evolved everything talent. He was stunned to discover that such a talent even existed. Shin King stared at the divine skill Evolve Everything, knowing it wasn't something that could be easily obtained with just 50 million gold coins. He opened its skill details, and the system showed him its abilities. The passive evolution had a 100% chance to upgrade a dropped item by 1 rank, with a 5% chance to trigger an intermediate evolution, upgrading the item by 2 ranks. It also noted that evolution could surpass the highest current item rank. The autonomous evolution had a 100% chance to upgrade any item, tool, skill, or gem by 2 levels, with a 10% chance to upgrade by 3 levels, and had a 24-hour cooldown. A key note was that the effect couldn't stack with the passive, and the same effect could only evolve once. He was amazed as he read through the details, smiling as he realized he had hit the jackpot. He activated the skill, and it wrapped around his arm, a golden light appearing as he shouted in excitement. He exclaimed that is excellent, knowing this ability was game-changing. While others were still dropping bronze and silver items, he would be dropping at least silver, gold, or even higher items. He confirmed to himself that his 500 million was well worth it. With his power, he could trample everyone beneath his feet. He decided to enter the game shortly, to casually kill some monsters, wanting to test the power of evolve everything with the dropped items. However, he remembered the 24-hour cooldown and realized that the first evolution was crucial. He thought it through, knowing he needed to find something with potential to evolve. After considering his options, he stored the item and made preparations. When he was ready, he opened the system window and clicked the center of it. The game entrance appeared before him, and he walked toward it, thinking that it was time to his fate as he stepped through the gate. He entered the beginner's village and saw crowds of people there. He had expected to be one of the first, but it seemed there were quite a few rich folks in this world too. Just then, he noticed 2 men chasing a chicken, shouting at it not to run and to hand over its experience points. The onlookers were shocked, asking if killing chickens gave experience. Soon, almost everyone in the village was chasing the poor chicken, trying to get experience points. Shin King stood speechless for a moment, then sighed and thought, is that all they've got? Deciding it wasn't worth mocking. He walked in the other direction, determined to seize every second for his first goal, defeating the newbie's own boss and earning the first kill reward. As he walked away, he could hear the other players amazed that the chicken had even dropped chicken meat. After several minutes of walking, Shin King found himself in the middle of a forest. The system warned him to be careful as he entered a wild monster area ahead, but he dismissed the notification. He knew it was dangerous, but he had to kill monsters quickly to level up and secure the first kill on the boss, which would grant him extra rewards that couldn't be stolen by others. Yet he knew that preparation was still necessary. Opening his inventory, he looked at the newbie bow and cloth armor with disdain. He knew these items had no evolutionary value, but if he didn't evolve something, it would be impossible to differentiate himself from others. Since the evolution ability could only be used once a day, not using it felt like a waste. He pondered what might have more potential to evolve. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He retrieved his evolve everything item and decided to evolve his elf bloodline. The bloodline emerged from his body and its silver crown and armor disappeared, transforming into a golden crown and armor. The system then revealed the evolved bloodline of the Elf King. Its effects were staggering. Strength empowerment boosted hit rate, critical strike, attack speed, and evasion by 50%, while movement speed was increased by 100%. Life Force increased his maximum health by 1,000 points, with an additional 100 points per level up. Lastly, the Life Arrow ability guaranteed that every third attack would be a critical hit. Shin King was amazed after reading the details of the evolved bloodline. He couldn't believe it had actually worked. With those attributes, solo grinding monsters in the newbie zone wouldn't be a problem. Suddenly, a loud howl echoed from the other side of the forest, making him wonder if it was a wolf. Meanwhile, on the other side, a level 2 forest, Wolf was facing a group of players. One man teased the wolf, asking if it thought it was fast, and said that as long as they killed it, they could level up. Another man added that the wolf should just obediently die. Unaware that Shin King was hiding behind a tree watching, he noticed that these players were smart enough to form teams to kill monsters during the beginner phase, which increased their safety even though it reduced experience and item drops. However, their outdoor survival skills were lacking. Wolves were pack animals. The team's mage suddenly noticed something behind her and anxiously called out to her team, warning that they were surrounded. The wolves rushed into attack. The archer screamed that even though he wouldn't die for real, the pain feedback was too realistic. The mage, being chased by the wolves, begged for help, but their tank sighed in despair, telling them he'd see them at the respawn point as he was bitten by the wolves. Within minutes, the entire team was dead. Once they were gone, Shin King took out his bow, muttering the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. He aimed carefully at the level 2 forest wolf, and when the timing was right, he released the arrow, striking the wolf in the head. The system notified him that he had killed the level 2 wolf, upgrading his Elf King bloodline. He gained an additional 100 life points, 10 magic points, 5 free attribute points, and leveled up to 2. He also obtained an item, Wolf Meat. The passive evolution turned it into Advanced Wolf Meat, which granted continuous health regeneration. He picked it up, knowing that healing items would be essential for solo grinding. But then the rest of the wolf pack noticed him and growled furiously. Startled, he quickly put his bow back into his inventory. He had tested enough damage for now and wanted to try something else, activating the Elf King Bloodline's passive ability, which provided a 100% speed increase. He dashed away at top speed. Moments later, he was sprinting and jumping over a cliff. Amazed by how fast the Bloodline made him just as fast as the wild wolves, even without additional equipment. He realized that for an archer, speed was crucial, and without his divine talent, growing strong would have been far more difficult. Peeking back, he teasingly asked the wolves if they couldn't catch him, but then he was shocked they had stopped chasing him. He came to a halt and wondered why they had stopped, noticing that the wolves, though angry, were trembling in fear. The system showed him that he had entered the Buffalo Zone, a higher level area. The wolves, now intimidated, turned around and walked away. If he remembered correctly, the Buffalo Zone contained level 5 monsters. Suddenly a voice called out, "Hey, handsome." He turned to see a woman with 2 men. The woman asked if he'd like to join their team. She explained that they were planning to hunt buffalo monsters and that they were likely the first to reach the area since the server had opened. However, a green-haired man in the group interrupted, saying that not just anyone could join them, pointing out that Shin King was only level 2 and would hold them back by sharing their experience. Shin King stared at them silently, then turned to leave, telling them they should keep grinding while he went elsewhere. The blue-haired man asked if he was out of his mind, but Shin King replied that grinding wild cattle was too inefficient. Besides, he preferred being a lone wolf. The blue-haired man warned him that the next area was even more dangerous and that no one had been there that it was risky even for them. The green-haired man then asked Shin King if he understood the penalty for dying. Shin King calmly replied that he didn't, since he was a low-level noob who hadn't died yet. He mockingly called the green-haired man old man and asked if he cared to explain it to him. The blue-haired man answered that upon dying, you lose all your gold, your equipment takes damage, and though it was just a game, the pain and despair of dying felt very real. Worse, half of your hard-earned experience points were cut. Shin King simply thanked him for the heads up and walked away, saying goodbye to the 2 pros with a calm demeanor. The woman suggested they bring Shin King along as it was too dangerous for him to be alone. However, the green-haired man replied that they shouldn't bother, and if that idiot wants to die, they should let him. No need to stop him. A few moments later, Shin King arrived at the next area. He saw human skulls scattered across the ground. Staring at one, he tossed it onto a pile of bones. Knowing this was the domain of the biggest boss in the newbie zone, he smiled to himself, guessing that today might be the day he would die. The skull Shin King threw as something resting beneath the pile, waking it from a deep sleep. A massive body stirred, scattering the skulls as a giant snake emerged in front of him. He activated his weakness detection skill to expose its weak point, and the system identified it as the Giant Snake King, a level 10 boss. Its weakness was located at the back of its neck, despite being only level 2 with around 210 health points. Thanks to the extra 1,000 health provided by the Elf King's bloodline, Shin King's health bar was now longer than the boss's. Confident, he drew his bow and aimed, knowing there was no need for fear. The giant snake, shocked by his action, lunged at him with its mouth wide open, trying to swallow him whole. Shin King activated his speed boost, thinking that at this pace it would be hard for the snake to land a hit. He easily dodged the attack and released an arrow toward the snake's neck, reducing its health by 29 points. However, he was frustrated by his low attack power. It was still a tough fight. The snake swung its tail at him, but his speed was fast enough to dodge the attack. Jumping at full speed, he shot another arrow at its neck, thinking he could kite the slow-moving monster to death. But before the arrow could land, the snake's body blocked the shot. He was annoyed to see that it was defending its weak point. Undeterred, he fired several arrows in quick succession, his boosted attack speed from the Elf King's bloodline making him faster. He taunted the boss, saying they should see whose speed prevails, his tail or his arrows. The first 2 arrows bounced off, but the third hit the snake's weak point, reducing its health by 58 points. Shin King teased, saying seems like he can't block every shot and his arrows are just a bit faster. However, he was stunned when the snake released smoke from its mouth. It was poison, the system alerted him that he was poisoned, losing 10 health points per second. At that rate, Shin King calculated he had less than 2.5 minutes before his health ran out. Meanwhile, the giant snake began to climb higher, trying to increase the distance between them. Shin King realized that the snake was attempting to lower his hit rate and wear him down with the poison. Furious, he aimed his arrow at the snake and said, "You really underestimate me." He unleashed a powerful shot, hitting the weak point again, and the system showed that the snake lost 116 health points. It let out a painful scream and fell to the ground as the arrow of life activated, scoring a critical hit on every third attack. Walking closer to the snake, Shin King mocked it, asked if it's sweating now, and it can't handle many more hits. The snake, still in pain, stood up again with 597 health points left. His own health continued to drop by 10 points each second, but he was confident. He muttered, saying 2 minutes is more than enough to finish it off. A minute later, with his health slowly decreasing, Shin King stumbled against a wall, his health down to 999 points. He wondered if the giant snake had gone crazy as it launched another attack at him. He dodged just in time, knowing that after realizing the strength of his critical hits, the snake had begun using its tail in a barrage of attacks like a map-wide assault. He wondered if does it really think that'll stop him. He landed near the snake's tail, only for it to launch another attack. He leaped into the air, rolling mid-jump, while aiming his arrow at the snake. After overestimating your speed, he taunted, releasing an arrow that struck the snake's belly, critically hitting it for 200 damage, leaving it with just 370 health points. Shin King was amazed at the higher damage output and wondered if it was because the snake's belly was softer, despite the back of its neck being the weak point. The scales on the neck provided more protection, but the exposed belly allowed for faster damage. He prepared to finish the fight by aiming at its belly again. However, he was surprised to see the snake teasingly staring at him, almost as if it were laughing. It attacked again with its tail, but he easily dodged the strike. Then, the ground around him began to crack. Shin King was stunned. The ground beneath him suddenly collapsed, and though he tried to jump away, he fell into the hole. Thankfully, he managed to land safely. The giant snake loomed above him, and Shin King realized that its tail attack was not just meant to hinder him, but to create a collapse. Confused, he watched the snake's next move. Suddenly, more smoke began to fill the area, and the system alerted him again. 20 health points per second. His current health was 600. Shin King knew that 20 health points per second was a death sentence for beginners. The giant snake was using its attacks to create deeper collapses, trapping him in pits while the poison weakened him further. He also realized that his jump height wasn't enough to escape, meaning even with double health, the poison could still kill him if he didn't act quickly. Shin King took out the wolf meat, laughing to himself, knowing the beginner area boss would have some tricks. Eager to see what the giant snake would drop, he ate the meat. The system notified him that the wolf meat had been consumed, restoring 20 health per second and increasing his speed by 10% for 20 seconds. Although the meat didn't cure the poison, it effectively countered the health reduction. Positioning his foot and body carefully, Shin King knew the battle's outcome would be decided during the next 20 seconds of increased speed. He leapt toward the wall, running at full speed to reach the top, while the giant snake was busy. Releasing poisonous smoke, Shin King appeared in front of it, aiming his bow. Smiling, he greeted the snake and released his arrow. Striking it directly in the eye, the snake screamed in pain and tried to crawl away at high speed. Shin King quickly fired another arrow, hitting the snake's side. The arrow pierced through its skin, making the snake furious. It turned to face him, but its eyes widened in shock as it seemed to see the king of elves standing behind Shin King. Without hesitating, Shin King activated his arrow of life skill. The arrow hit the one already embedded in the snake's side, splitting it in half as the new arrow pierced through the snake's mouth. The system notified him that the hit dealt 200 damage, finally killing the giant snake. Landing on the ground, Shin King watched as the system showed him that the poison status had been removed upon victory. The system congratulated him on being the first player to kill the boss and achieve the server's first kill, earning him a spot on the glory board. His accomplishment would be announced across the servers 3 times, and the system asked if he wanted to hide his. After a moment of reflection, Shin King decided it was time to stop hiding. He replied with a resounding no, and the system revealed his ID, Cao Zhiwang, congratulating him for being the first to kill the giant snake. King. Players across the server were frustrated upon seeing the announcement. Many had only just begun playing, while others complained to each other for being too slow. It was hard for them to believe that a level 3 player had swallowed a boss. Meanwhile, in the Buffalo Zone, the blue-haired player Player caught his breath and remarked to his team that they had finally defeated their own boss, feeling certain based on its strength. The green-haired player agreed, wondering aloud what their first kill rewards would be. The two men laughed together, expecting high-value equipment and imagining praise from their female teammate. However, their celebration was abruptly cut short when the system announced that Kajawang had successfully killed the giant Snake King, earning 1,000 reputation points in a silver chest. Both men were left in shock, furiously questioning how someone could be stronger than them and who Kaoju Wang was. Back in the boss zone, the system congratulated Shun King again for defeating a higher level boss. He earned 1.5 times the experience points, instantly leveling up from 2 to 7. Shun King confirmed that the risk had been worth it, smiling as he saw that he had jumped 5 levels. The system then revealed his unassigned attribute points, 30 in total, and he immediately allocated all of them to agility. His updated stats reflected significant boosts. Attack power rose to 65, agility to 39, and his overall speed and evasion had greatly improved. Noticing that his health now exceeded that of most warriors, Shun King realized he was essentially a tank. Turning toward the dissolving corpse of the giant snake, he eagerly awaited the loot. Suddenly, his Evolve Everything skill activated, and the system notified him that his 10 silver coins had automatically evolved into 10 gold coins. Shun King couldn't believe his luck. Having 10 gold coins in the beginner area at the start of the server was akin to being a tycoon. Yet his skill continued to glow. Confused, Shun King wondered if a second evolution had been triggered. He raised his arm, knowing that something great was coming. Excitement coursed through him as he prepared to discover what treasure would come next. Shun King retrieved a crystal coin, a rare and extinct currency that could be used to purchase special and unknown items from NPCs. It was also known to significantly increase NPC favorability when given to them. He remembered hearing about it in his previous life, but had never seen one before. He was certain it would come in handy in the future. After gathering all the dropped items, he opened his backpack and found a silver snake one-handed sword with 28 attack power, 7 strength, and 5 agility. The weapon had class requirements for warriors and assassins, with a special effect called Snake Kiss that consumed 20 energy points, adding a snake venom effect to attacks. Though the sword wasn't useful to him, since it wasn't a bow, Shun King knew selling it could bring in a decent amount of money. He then checked another item and was pleased with what he saw. It was an Azure scale armor with 25 defense, 200 health, and 10 constitution. The armor had a level 10 requirement with no class restrictions. Its special effects scale shield granted a 300-point shield at the start of battle with a cooldown of 300 seconds. He recalled that the normal quality Azure scale armor didn't have any special effects, only attribute bonuses. The silver level version had the shield effect, though he wondered why. It required level 10 to use. Shun King felt it wasn't a significant upgrade after defeating the boss. Then he remembered the reputation system had mentioned a silver treasure chest. Taking out the chest, he opened it, hoping it wouldn't contain items for other classes. The chest revealed 7-star chain arrows, a legendary item. The system explained that it consumed 50 magic points, fired 4 consecutive arrows at a target, and dealt true damage equal to 1% of the target's maximum health per arrow, with a 60-second cooldown. The item had a level 10 requirement. Shun King was thrilled to see the skill, knowing it was godly and exclusive to archers. However, he was disappointed that he couldn't use it until level 10. Still, he took it as motivation to level up quickly, knowing his damage would increase significantly once he reached the required level. Suddenly, he heard someone in the hole below, stammering and calling for help. Curious, Shun King carefully peeked into the hole and saw a woman, Lady Gu, asking for assistance. She explained that she had hidden there to avoid the giant snake. Shun King recognized Lady Gu is an NPC known for giving players hidden quests. He informed her that the giant snake had been dealt with, and she could come out, but she showed him her injured foot and asked if he could carry her out. Startled, Shun King was both shy and shocked, but decided to help her, lifting her out of the pit. Lady Gu thanked him, sweetly expressing her gratitude, saying she might have died if not for his help. She promised to take good care of him the next time they met, which made Shun King frown, wondering what she meant by next time. As she let go of him, she fell to the ground, claiming she had little to repay him with except for her body, flirtatiously asking if he wanted it. Shun King sternly told her to stop, refusing her offer. Laughing, Lady Gu pulled out a black moon blade, a bronze item for the assassin class, from her chest, teasing him for seeing through her act. She offered the blade to him, but Shun King slapped it away, telling her that this was her last chance and demanding the hidden class instead. Confused, Lady Gu asked what hidden class he was referring to, Shin King calmly stated that if she wouldn't cooperate, he would find the 14-year-old girl with the surname Gu, who lived nearby. Panicked upon hearing him mention her daughter, Lady Gu asked how he knew about her. Left with no choice, she agreed to help him unlock the path to the hidden class. Slightly irritated, Shin King asked why she hadn't just done that from the beginning. Lady Gu said nothing, standing up silently. She raised her hands into the air and began to dance gracefully. As she twirled and completed her movements, a magic circle opened beneath Shin King's feet. Lady Gu explained to Shin King that this was the hidden class trial, and if he passed, he would gain a hidden class. He initially felt optimistic and thanked her, but she smiled and told him not to be so quick with his gratitude. Confused, Shin King asked her why, only for the system to pop up in front of him, showing that the Shadowhunter trial was marked as a difficult level. He was horrified. See, that failure meant permanent disqualification. Shocked that it was set to such a high difficulty, he panicked, shouting to Lady Gu that there must be a mistake. He was only level 7 and felt that he should be doing a normal or beginner level trial. The difficult level would surely kill him. Desperate to escape, he tried to jump away, but his leg was trapped by a magic seal, rendering him immobile. Lady Gu laughed and taunted him, mocking his plan to use her daughter. The system showed that her favorability had dropped to 0. Shin King realized he may have approached this all wrong, thinking that increasing her favorability beforehand might have been the correct method. The portal began to pulling him in slowly, and Shin King realized there was no way out. Lady Gu remarked that whether he passed or failed depended on his skill, to which he angrily swore that as soon as he got out, he would find her daughter. The portal transported him to the trial zone and spat him out. Fortunately, his agility allowed him to land safely, coughing from the sand swirling around him. Shin King took in his surroundings that it was a vast desert of nothing but sand. The system notification popped up, officially beginning the Shadowhunter trial with a difficult setting, reiterating that failure would mean permanent disqualification. Shin King understood the gravity of the situation. It was pass or die. He took out his bow and noticed something sharp protruding from the sand. As he got a better look, he was shocked to realize they were huge, sharp teeth. Immediately, he jumped, narrowly avoided being devoured by a massive sandworm hidden beneath the surface. Realizing this was the trial's enemy, he activated his weakness detection skill. The system identified the creature as an elite-level ground sandworm, level 5 with 45 attack power, 30 defense, 2,000 health, 11 movement speed, and a weakness in the center of its mouth. Shin King aimed and fired an arrow directly at its weak spot, successfully reducing its health by 130 points. Once the sandworm emerged from the sand, Shin King noticed that it became clumsy, giving him contact, evidence that if he could keep hitting its mouth, he had a good chance of defeating it. The sandworm roared in fury and rushed toward him, but before it could reach him, it dug deep into the sand, creating a massive impact. Shin King knew that if he were hit by such an attack, it would shatter him. He observed the large hole left behind, realizing that the sandworm had completely submerged itself. Suddenly, the sand around him began to shake, and the ground in front of him shifted. Shin King found it troublesome. Tracking the creature's movements underground was difficult, and the sandworm's agility beneath the surface made it hard to predict when and where it would appear. He had less than a second to react when it surfaced, and he wasn't confident he could dodge every attack. Looking around, he realized he needed to find a solid surface to minimize the chances of being ambushed from below. Spotting a pillar near, he sprinted toward it. Just as he was about to reach the pillar, sharp teeth erupted from the ground beneath him. Shin King stopped for a split second and leaped away in time, narrowly dodging the sandworm's attack. Quickly drawing 2 arrows, he fired them in succession, both hitting the creature's mouth, reducing its health to 390 points. Although the sandworm was repulsive, Shin King realized that as long as he could avoid its ambushes, it was manageable. However, the sandworm retaliated by spitting a cloud of sand in his direction. Shin King instinctively covered his mouth and nose, realizing that it was trying to catch him off guard while he was airborne. He threw something to block the sand, but a portion still hit him, reducing his health by 52 points. Worse, his vision was reduced by 50%, and his attack accuracy was lowered by 30% for the next 10 seconds due to the blinding effect. Shin King moved a little farther away from the sandworm, noticing that the blinding effect was too strong. If the creature ambushed him now, it would be disastrous. As he thought about reaching the stone pillar, the sandworm suddenly emerged behind him at high speed. Sensing its presence, he turned in shock but managed to leap away just in time. Realizing he had no choice but to bet on his instincts, he slammed into the pillar and was relieved to have guessed right. He could hear the sound of the creature digging again, diving back underground. The burrowing and blinding tactics were proving to be a real pain. But Shin King saw that the creature's weaknesses were too obvious, especially with how easily he'd landed a few solid hits earlier. Its attacks, mostly from below, had a predictable pattern. As the system showed that the blinding debuff had expired, Shin King felt confident again. He could now see clearly, and the sandworm's attacks were so monotonous that he realized once he figured out the pattern, defeating it would be simple. Aiming his arrow, he prepared for a counterattack. The sandworm's teeth burst out of the sand near him, but Shin King dodged the attack by jumping back. The pillar, laughing at the creature's predictability. It spat sand at him again, but he swiftly jumped to the side, knowing that even with the stone pillar in play, he could change direction midair and avoid the attack. Releasing an arrow, he struck the creature, decreasing its health by 260. The sandworm paused for a moment, seemingly stunned, and Shin King dropped down to the sand, taunting it for not attacking anymore and questioning if those were its only 2 moves. Deciding to end the fight, Shin King dashed toward the sandworm at top speed. When it tried to spit sand again, he leaped into the air and shot an arrow into its open mouth, reducing its health by another 130 points. Without hesitation, he unleashed a flurry of arrows, hitting the creature multiple times and bringing its health down with each strike 130, 260, and more. After a few more successful hits, Shin King aimed his final arrow at the sandworm's weak spot. With one last shot, he killed it. The system notified him that he had leveled up to 8, and his 10 copper coins had evolved into 10 silver coins. Additionally, he received sand boots, a bronze quality item that couldn't be upgraded. Its special effect was a 10% movement speed boost in sandy environments. Disappointed, Shin King cursed at the sandworm, frustrated that such a large creature gave such little loot. If not for the decent experience points, he would have stomped on it a few more times. He then noticed glowing words on the pillar and wondered why they were illuminated. Upon closer inspection, he saw that there were 8 identical words, but only the one at the bottom was glowing. Just as he began to figure something out, a swarm of sandworms burst from the ground, confirming his suspicion. Frustrated, Shin King realized he would have to defeat all of them to clear the level. Quickly, he leaped to the top of the pillar, thinking that if it weren't for the trial, this place would be great for leveling up. However, staying on the ground was far too dangerous now. Every step could trigger multiple giant bugs emerging from all directions, and no matter how fast he was, he couldn't handle that many at once. He deduced that the sandworms were attacking based on vibrations in the ground. Shin King wondered how he could create ground vibrations from a safe distance, shooting arrows directly into. The sand might alert multiple sandworms at once, and even the pillar might get destroyed. Needed a way to lure them out one by one. An idea struck him, and he opened his inventory. Grabbing a handful of silver coins, too heavy for copper but perfect for the task, he tossed a few onto the sand. The weight was just right, and as soon as the coins hit the ground, one of the sandworms immediately emerged in anger. Shin King aimed and fired his arrow, feeling a bit extravagant fighting with money as bait. Unfortunately, his shot hit the body instead of the mouth, only reducing the creature's health by 35 points. His position on the pillar was safe, but the angle made it impossible to hit the sandworm's weak spot, and the creature's defense was too high for him to deal significant damage. Still, Shin King wasn't worried. Smirking, he reached into his inventory for a few more silver coins. 4 hours later, Shin King sat on the pillar and exhaled in relief. He was finally done. The system popped up in front of him, showing that his level had increased to 10. He now had 15 unassigned attribute points, had gained 80 silver coins, and his mana and health had increased by 30 and 330 points respectively. Surprised that he had reached level 10 without realizing it, he noted that the sandworms had given him a significant amount of experience. Upon reviewing his attribute points, Shin King remembered something and opened his personal details. He realized that his luck stat had been at 0, and he wondered if that was why he had such low drop rates. Deciding to experiment, he assigned all 15 attribute points to luck. As his luck increased to 15, he noticed that his hit rate and evasion had also gone up, hit rate to 81 and evasion to 16. Amazed by the unexpected correlation, Shin King marveled at how useful luck could be. The system then notified him that his passive evolution skill had activated, wrapping itself around one of the sandworm corpses. Shin King recalled how in his previous life, due to a lack of funds, he had been forced to put all his scarce attribute points into attack and health, missing out on other benefits. When he saw a purple light flash, he hurriedly jumped down, knowing that a legendary item had dropped. Inspecting the sandworm corpse, Shin King found Sand Escape, a legendary skill that allowed free movement through sand to conceal oneself. It also provided a movement speed bonus of 12 in sandy environments, but couldn't pass through hard ground. The skill had no level requirement, but could only be used in desert terrain. Disappointed by how unimpressive the legendary skill seemed, Shin King wondered if the game was teasing him by giving him a bug skill. Still, he thought it might be useful for survival or surprise attacks. Hesitantly, he ordered the system to learn the skill, which cost him 10 silver coins. After successfully learning Sand Escape, he remembered that he had reached level 10 and could now use the 7-star chain arrow skill from the previous silver chest. He ordered the system to learn the new skill, paying another 20 silver coins. The system then asked if he wanted to equip the blue armor, a silver grade item. He confirmed, and his outfit changed to the blue armor. The significant boost made him feel stronger, and he knew he was now the highest level player on the server. After completing everything, Shin King looked around and noticed that all the words on the pillar were now lit. All the monsters had been defeated, and he had collected all the drops. However, nothing seemed to be happening, leaving him puzzled. His confusion turned to alarm when the entire trial zone began to shake. He wondered if an earthquake was occurring. Suddenly, the pillar moved and opened, causing the ground to rumble. Approaching the opening, Shin King found a ladder inside, leading him to believe that the real reward was hidden below. As he prepared to descend, eager to test his new skills and equipment, he heard a voice calling his name. Confused, he looked up and realized it was his sister Tong calling him. She shouted from the real world, telling him that it was time to eat and that she had made his favorite pickled egg and lean meat porridge. Panicked, Shin King asked her if she had climbed onto the game pod, then quickly shouted for her to get down before she hurt herself. The system alerted him that someone was calling, asking if he wanted to exit the game. Shin King refused, knowing that leaving before clearing the trial would mean permanently losing the chance to obtain the hidden profession. He called out to Tong, asking her to stop interrupting him as he was in the middle of an important game. Tong, worried, reminded him that he had been playing for 8 hours straight and was still in recovery, warning him that she would get angry if he didn't stop. Shin King, frustrated, shouted at her to behave and not disturb her big brother. Angrily, she put the food on the table, storming off while muttering that she didn't care about him anymore. As she walked away, her sadness was evident. She wondered how things had come to this and how she could help her brother recover. Shin King felt a pang of guilt, but told himself that once he became stronger, everything would be better. With that thought, he descended the ladder, determined to face the next challenge. Entering the portal, he was instantly transported to a new area. The system warned him that the area was extremely dangerous and advised caution, making him suspect that this was the real boss room. Suddenly, huge shell-like claws burst from the ground in front of him, and Shin King couldn't believe his eyes. He was face to face with a massive crab in the desert. Shin King, a gold-level boss. The system identified its stats: 200 attack power, level 15, 80 defense, 6,000 health, and a special ability called Sandstorm. Shin King found the boss's attributes ridiculous and immediately activated his weakness detection skill, only to be shocked further when the system revealed that the Sand King had no detectable weaknesses. The Sand King launched its massive claw, and Shin King narrowly jumped away to avoid it. He was relieved that the Sand King, being full-sized, wasn't fast, but the shockwave from its attack still hit him, decreasing his armor class by 100. Shin King couldn't believe that the shockwave alone could cause real damage as he landed on the ground, bracing himself with one hand. He quickly shifted into a sitting position. He was grateful for the 300-point shield provided by his blue armor. Had that hit directly impacted his health, it would have felt like being struck by a truck. When the Sand King lifted its claw out of the ground, Shin King was shocked by the massive hole it left behind. He realized that as a gold-level boss, it was no wonder the Sand King was so powerful. He quickly deduced that simply dodging its attacks wouldn't be enough, firing an arrow at the creature. He was dismayed to see that it only caused 1 point of damage. His eyes widened and believed he realized that when the defense is far higher than the attack power, the damage would be reduced to almost nothing. The Sand King attacked again, thrusting its claw toward him. Shin King used his speed to run, knowing that jumping would expose him to the shockwave's damage. But just as he thought he had avoided the attack, another claw came at him, leaving him no room to dodge. Panic set in as the claw pierced the ground where he stood. For a moment, the Sand King seemed confused when it saw only a hole. But Shun King had managed to cling to the back of its claw, narrowly avoiding death. His heart pounded as he realized how close he was to being crushed. The Sand King shrugged him off, sending him flying. Shun King barely managed to steady himself, midair calling the creature a damn thing in frustration. He drew his bow, determined to strike back. Activating his 7 star-linked arrows skill, he unleashed a series of arrows that landed multiple hits, reducing the Sand King's health. Each hit inflicted true damage, ignoring the Sand King's armor. The most important aspect of the skill was that the higher the Sand King's maximum health, the more damage it dealt. The boss's health was now down to 5145, but the Sand King retaliated by launching 3 claws at once. Shun King successfully dodged the attacks, but the shockwaves hit him, reducing his armor. Clasped by 100 twice and draining 100 points of his health. Realizing he had enraged the creature, he cursed at it, calling it a dog for not backing down. The Sand King, furious, attacked again. Although Shun King managed to dodge the claw, another shockwave hit him, causing another 100 health loss. Seeing no other option, Shun King sprinted up the creature's claw, making his way to its head. Aiming his bow, he prepared to use the 7-star arrow skill again, but nothing happened. Confused, he checked his mana and realized he had run out. The realization struck him hard. Despite the skill's strength, his mana capacity wasn't enough to fire it twice in a row. His auto recovery only gave him 2 points, and his current mental strength allowed him to recover about 5 mana points per minute. He calculated that it would take at least 4 minutes to use the skill again. Before he could think further, the Sand King jumped, surprising Shun King. He glanced back, realizing it was trying to slam him into the ceiling. He leaped off just in time, landing safely on the ground. He muttered that if the Sand King really wanted to crush him against the ceiling, it would need to move at least 10 times faster. As the Sand King jumped, it exposed its underbelly, allowing Shun King's weakness detection skill to finally mark its weak spot. He was stunned. The weak point was in its abdomen, hidden earlier. He realized that the reason his skill hadn't detected it before was because it was concealed beneath the creature's tough exterior. Shun King remarked to himself that the Sand King seemed to be inviting him to shoot its weak spot. Suddenly, a powerful aura emanated from the Sand King's abdomen, and the system issued a warning. The Sand King was preparing its ultimate attack. Shun King's heart raced as he read the details. Sandstorm, a level danger ultimate that inflicted 100 damage per second, restricted movement, and caused 60 seconds of blindness. Confused and shocked, Shun King watched as sandstorms began forming around him. Panic set in as he realized the severity of the situation. High damage was one thing, but 60 seconds of blinding and movement restriction made survival almost impossible. He bent down, bracing himself against the wind and sand. Knowing that running wasn't an option, the wind pressure was so strong that he couldn't move his legs. Worse, the sandstorm had control effects, leaving him with nowhere to hide. Taking the full brunt of the attack would deal 6,000 damage, far more than he could withstand. As the sandstorm whirled around him, his health dropped by 100 points every second. Frustrated, Shun King yelled at the Sand King, accusing it of cheating as his health continued to drain. Shun King was frustrated, trapped inside the sandstorms. He knew getting caught in them could be fatal, or at the very least, severely injure him. Despite the chaos, he managed to release an arrow, landing a critical hit on the Sand King's weak point, decreasing its health by 260. That he taunted the creature, which only enraged it further. The Sand King tightened its control over the sandstorms, pulling them closer until they consumed Shun King. Before disappearing from view, Shun King managed to shout at the creature to just wait. After a few minutes, when the Sand King's ultimate move ceased, it was confused to see that Shun King had vanished. The sand shifted on the side, and Shun King burst out at full speed, releasing an arrow toward the creature's abdomen and hitting its weak spot. The Sand King, stunned and angry, shrieked as its health dropped by 130. That enraged it activated the sandstorms again, but Shun King shouted that he was no longer afraid of that move. Activating his sand escape skill, Shun King dived into the sand, avoiding the storms entirely. Swimming through the sand, he emerged on the other side and unleashed a volley of arrows. Proud of his clever use of the skill, he realized that Sand Escape was no joke. It allowed him to avoid ground-based damage and strike the Sand King's weak point again, reducing its health from 6,000 to 4,419. The Sand King shrieked in pain and glared at Shun King before descending from the ceiling. He mocked the creature, asking why it had come down if it was so comfortable up there. The Sand King furiously launched its sharp claw, but Shun King dodged it, diving back into the sand to avoid the shockwave. Peeking out of the sand, he taunted the creature once more, only angering it further. The Sand King began stabbing the ground repeatedly, trying to catch him. However, Shin King calmly dodged each attack by diving deeper into the sand, all the while thinking that Sand Escape was truly a legendary skill. It didn't consume mana and had no cooldown, while the Sand King tried in vain. To find him, Shin King continued to land small hits on the boss, each one reducing its health by just 1 point. Though his attacks were minimal, they were certainly provoking the creature. The Sand King, reaching its limit, furiously yelled. Calling Shin King a jerk, Shin King was shocked it could talk. 3 hours later, Shin King was exhausted, with only 720 health left. His mana had recovered to 50, allowing him to use the 7-star arrows skill again. Knowing it was time to finish the battle, Shin King called out to the Sand King, now reduced to 1160 health, asking if it had rested enough. He threatened to strike if the creature didn't move, but the Sand King, to his surprise, ran away, surrendering. It exposed its abdomen and pleaded for Shin King to finish it off, explaining that the slow, gradual scraping was torturous for a crab. Laughing, Shin King admitted he didn't want to drag it out either, but pointed out that its defense was too high. He then aimed his arrow and released the 7-star arrows skill, instantly killing the Sand King. The system congratulated him for defeating the Sand King, awarding him a cross-level challenge experience bonus of 1.5, causing him to level up 3 times. Shin King knew that leveling up would only get more difficult from here, but gaining 13 levels in 1 day was remarkable. He was confident that he was first player to achieve it. The system then notified him that he had obtained the qualification to change his class to Phantom Hunter and asked if he wanted to proceed. Shin King clicked yes without hesitation, knowing he had worked hard for this. His class slowly transformed, and his Golden King of Elves bloodline shifted into a Dark Phantom Hunter. The system confirmed the successful class change, increasing his health and mana by 200, his attack power by 20, and all his attributes by 5. The system also explained that the Phantom Hunter talent granted him 2 extra attribute points per level up, increasing his free allocation points from 5 to 7, a powerful advantage. Shin King was thrilled, knowing that the 2 exclusive skills of the Phantom Hunter, Phantom Summon and Death Trap, seemed simple on the surface, but were actually growth-type skills that would become extremely powerful over time. The 100% damage boost from the Death Trap, combined with the Phantom's output, had the potential to install kill enemies, making this class truly worthy of being a hidden one. He glanced at the system, which showed that his active evolution would be ready in 5 hours. Shin King wondered what kind of abilities his Phantom could evolve into. Excited, he activated his passive evolution, thinking that investing in luck had been the right move. He threw the evolution onto the Sand King's corpse. The system revealed that the gold obtained was 32 silver coins, 32 gold coins, and 2 crystal gems. This brought his current total to 43 gold coins, 20 silver coins, and 8 crystal gems. Shin King set a small goal for himself to earn 1 billion gold. He then proceeded to check what other items had dropped, ordering the system to store everything in his inventory. The system showed that Shin King had acquired an armor-piercing bow, a silver-tier weapon requiring level 10, with a 50 attack power boost, 10 agility, and a special effect that reduced the opponent's defense by 5 points per hit, stackable up to 5 times. He was glad to finally have it. Decent bow, perfect for dealing with high defense monsters, and equipped it immediately. He also received steel gauntlets, another silver tier item with 12 attack power, 7 agility, and the ability to speed up arrow loading, which he also equipped without hesitation. Next, he found a golden greatsword, silver tier as well, with a profession requirement for warriors. It increased strength by 10, had a level requirement of 12, and its special effect allowed swings to release golden sword energy, dealing 30% of attack power. Though it looked impressive, Shin King couldn't use it and thought it would be a shame to sell it. He decided to store it for now, thinking it might be useful for someone else later. Finally, he equipped the Life Amulet, a silver tier item with no profession requirement that increased his defense by 10 and restored 10 health per second when out of combat. He then allocated his 21 unassigned attribute points to agility, and the system showed his stats had increased significantly. But just as he was feeling good about his progress, the system warned him that he had played for over 15 hours and would be forcibly logged out soon. Surprised, he was about to object, but before he could react, he was transported to the lobby and forcefully logged out, all while shouting that he still wanted to grind. Back in the real world, Shin King found himself in his room, inside the pod. Frustrated, he wondered how an adult like him ended up with an anti-addiction system, but he reassured himself that everything was going smoothly at this rate. Chang Kai and those who betrayed him would soon pay. As he headed to bed, Shin King noticed Tong sleeping peacefully nearby. The porridge he had made for him looked and smelled surprisingly good. He reflected on how Tong, once pampered like a princess, had endured so much just to take care of his body and mood. She never lifted a finger before, but now she was doing everything she could for him. He ate the food, promising himself that once his revenge was complete, he would make sure Tong lived a good life, but the moment he tasted the porridge, his body shuddered. It tasted like a block of salt boiled in bitter bile, causing him to tear up and even get a nosebleed from the shock. The noise woke Tong, who saw him awake and immediately asked if he had eaten the porridge she made. Despite the awful taste, Shin King apologized for waking her and told her that the porridge tasted good, fresh, and delicious. Tong, pleased, urged him to finish it because he must be starving. Defeated, Shin King took another spoonful, swallowing it in silence, tears streaming down his face, as even the ghosts feared the dish. The next day, Shin King was tired and dehydrated from the porridge disaster. A sexy nurse entered the room, asking how he was feeling and leaning in close, reminding him that he had vomited and had diarrhea the day before, which had scared her. She knew Shin King was a rich young master and very handsome, and she thought that even though he was crippled, staying close to him could mean a life of luxury. He coldly told her that he was fine and just tired from playing games the day before. She touched his hand, offering her help for anything he needed instead of responding to her advances. Shin King requested she push his wheelchair over to the game pod because he wanted to play. The nurse, confused and angered, wondered if she really meant less to him than a video game. Once Shin King was back inside the pod, the nurse wheeled his chair aside, muttering to herself, wondering if her makeup wasn't good enough that day. Ignoring her, Shin King logged back in. When he opened his eyes in the game, he found himself in the village. The system welcomed him back, informing him that the current number of online players was 300,000. He quickly realized that many players were joining the game through cheaper VR devices, and in a month the global player base would likely exceed 100 million. Knowing that, Shin King understood the urgency to level up fast. Opening his equipment panel, Shin King saw that his current gear included the life amulet, Kinglin armor-piercing bow, sand boots, and steel gauntlets, but he still lacked head and knee equipment. Deciding he needed top-tier gear, he resolved to hunt bosses above level 20. He headed to the village equipment shop. The shopkeeper was surprised to see a customer, but was amazed when he noticed Shin King's silver armor. Approaching with curiosity, the shopkeeper asked what he would like. However, when Shin King looked at the equipment in the store, he saw only bronze tier items, which were junk to him. He suspected that the shopkeeper had hidden the better golden tier equipment away. Looking the shopkeeper in the eye, Shin King demanded to see the shop's treasure item. The shopkeeper, pretending not to understand, asked what Shin King meant by treasure item. The shop owner explained to Shin King that the items displayed were all he had in stock, offering him a discount if he chose something. As for shop treasure, the owner claimed they didn't have anything like that, and even if they did, he doubted Shin King could afford it. In response, Shin King tossed a crystal gem at the owner. The shopkeeper's favorability toward him immediately increased by 70 points, and he admitted he had failed to recognize a person of great standing. Impressed, the owner opened hidden door and revealed the shop's secret inventory, explaining that these items were supposed to be sold 30 days after the server opened, but given Shin King's status, he was allowed to pick one early. Looking around, Shin King saw that the items were mostly silver tier, which he immediately dismissed as trash. The owner was shocked by his reaction, but Shin King's attention was caught by something inside a glass case, a mask. He pointed to it and told the owner he wanted it. The owner praised Shin King's keen eye, revealing that it was the only golden mask in the game since the server's launch. It was only one in the entire game. The mask was supposed to be sold for at least 200,000 gold coins starting next month, but because Shin King had given him a crystal gem, the owner offered it for 150,000 gold coins. The system asked Shin King if he would like to use 200,000 coins for the transaction, and he immediately agreed. The owner was stunned, knowing that an average player might take a year to gather 150,000 gold coins, but Shin King casually told him to keep the discount, saying he didn't need it. He added that the next time the shop had something good, the owner should notify him first. The shopkeeper, now calling him a VIP customer, eagerly agreed. Stepping out of the store, Shin King equipped the mask, knowing that 200,000 gold coins were worth 2 million in cash. For unique headgear, it wasn't expensive. Activating the mask by clicking the earplug, he was amazed to see he could customize its display settings. The system revealed that the mask was called the White Tiger Mask, a gold-grade item that increased speed by 15 and granted nearby players a 15 strength boost with its tiger-shaped activation skill. Its special effect terrified monsters and players below level than him, which impressed Shin King, though he expected nothing less from a gold-grade item. As he walked through the village, players around him noticed his extraordinary mask, wondering in shock if it was a gold-grade item. Some thought it was from a treasure chest, as they found it hard to believe that someone had already obtained a gold-grade item, especially since there were no gold-tier items listed in the official shop. Suddenly, someone grabbed Shin King by the shoulder, stopping him. Turning around, Shin King asked the man what he wanted. The man commented on his impressive gear and asked if Shin King could lend it to him for a while. Shin King took off the mask, looking at the man with a smirk, and asked why he should lend his equipment. The man, confident, implied that Shin King must have cheated to obtain such high-level gear so early after the server opened. If he didn't want to get banned, the man suggested he should hand over his items. Laughing, Shin King asked if the man was really trying to rob him. Nearby players gathered, curious about the commotion, while the blonde-haired bully who had confronted Shin King started laughing, calling Shin King a cheating upgrade dog and suggesting they teach him a lesson. The long-haired man next to him agreed, stating that it was clearly a robbery, and the other players began shouting. In agreement, eager to see the supposed cheater get taken down, the leader of the group threatened that if Shin King didn't hand over his gear, they would kill him repeatedly, sending him back to the respawn point over and over again. Annoyed, Shin King replied that there were always fools who believed whatever they heard and scoundrels who couldn't stand seeing others succeed. He activated his weakness detection skill while putting his mask back on, noting that his 3 opponents were a level 4 warrior, a level 5 assassin, and a level 5 archer. He sighed, stating he hated trouble, but inviting them all to come at him. The archer leaped into the air, aiming at Shin King and warning him that one move would blow his head off. The warrior charged at him, shouting that Shin King's stance was full of openings while the assassin appeared behind him, accusing Shin King of being arrogant. But before any of them could land an attack, Shin King activated the special effect of his White Tiger Mask, unleashing a tiger-shaped aura. The tiger's roar echoed loudly, and all 3 attackers were instantly knocked down to the ground by the pressure. The warrior coughed up blood from the impact, while the surrounding players stood in stunned silence, trying to figure out what had just happened. Shin King approached the warrior, asking if he still planned to kill him at the respawn point, teasingly reminding him that his ID was Ko Ju Wong and that they were welcome to come after him anytime. With that, he walked away, leaving the crowd murmuring about his identity. Checking the leaderboard, some players quickly recognized the name Ko Ju Wong. To their shock, they saw that he was rank number 1, listed as a level 13 Phantom Hunter, leaving everyone in stunned disbelief. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment part 2 in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time again.